Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Shrotra Sata Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki Jai Hare Krishna Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shubhnevadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare. Reading from Preaching is the Essence. The test of a Vaishnava is how many Vaishnavas he has made. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that the position of a Vaishnava can be tested by seeing how good a touchstone he is. That is, by seeing how many Vaishnavas he has made during his life. A Vaishnava should be a touchstone so that he can convert others to Vaishnavism by his preaching. Even though people may be fallen like the hunter, there are so many so-called advanced devotees who sit in a secluded place for their personal benefit. They do not go out to preach and convert others into Vaishnavas. Is this needed? Yeah. And therefore, they certainly cannot be called Sparshamani, advanced devotees. Kanishta Adhikari devotees cannot turn others into Vaishnavas, but a Madhyama Adhikari, Vaishnava, can do so by preaching. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 24, verse 277. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Are we still reading from the introduction? Right, there's a bookmark, so I think it starts from on hearing this statement from the Lord. On hearing this statement from the Lord, the Mayavadi sannyasi asked the Lord what was the harm in studying the Vedanta along with chanting the holy name. Prakashananda Saraswati knew very well that the Lord was formerly known as Nimai Pandit, a very learned scholar of Navadvip, and his posing as a great fool was certainly to some purpose. Hearing this inquiry by the sannyasi, the Lord smiled and said, "My dear sir, if you do not mind, I will answer your inquiry." All the sannyasis there were very much pleased with the Lord for his honest dealings, and they unanimously replied that they would not be offended by whatever he replied. The Lord then spoke as follows. Vedanta Sutra consists of transcendental words or sounds uttered by the transcendental personality of Godhead. As such, in the Vedanta, there cannot be human deficiencies like mistake, illusion, cheating, or inefficiency. The message of the Upanishads is expressed in the Vedanta Sutra, and what is said there directly is certainly glorified. Whatever interpretations have been given by Shankaracharya have no direct meaning on the Sutra, and therefore such commentation spoils everything. The word Brahman indicates the greatest of all, which is full with transcendental opulences, superior to all. Brahman is ultimately the personality of Godhead, and he is covered by indirect interpretations and established as impersonal. Everything that is in the spiritual world is full of transcendental bliss, including the form, body, place, and paraphernalia of the Lord. All are eternally cognizant and blissful. It is not the fault of Acharya Shankara that he has so interpreted the Vedanta, but if someone accepts it, then certainly he is doomed. Anyone who accepts the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead as something mundane certainly commits the greatest blasphemy. The Lord thus spoke to the sannyasi almost in the same way that he spoke to the Bhattacharya of Puri, and by forceful arguments he nullified the Mayavad interpretations of the Vedanta Sutra. All the sannyasis there claimed that the Lord was the personified Vedas and the personality of Godhead. All the sannyasis were converted to the cult of bhakti. All of them accepted the holy name of Lord Sri Krishna, and they dined together with the Lord in the midst of them. After this conversation of the sannyasis, the popularity of the Lord increased at Varanasi, and thus thousands of people assembled to see the Lord in person. The Lord thus established the primary importance of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Dharma, and he defeated all other systems of spiritual realization. After that, everyone at Varanasi was overwhelmed with the transcendental Sankirtan movement. Reading from text 11 of chapter 2 of the first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Vadanti tat tattva vidaha tattvam yat jnanam advayam Brahma iti Paramatma iti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate.
Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate.
Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate.
Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate.
Vadanti tat tattvavidas Tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate.
Mataji, would you like to chant? Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti Bhagavan iti shabdyate. Vadanti, they say, tat, that, tattvavidaha, learned souls, tattvam, the absolute truth, yet, which, jnanam, knowledge, advayam, non-dual, brahma iti, known as Brahman, Paramatma iti, known as Paramatma, Bhagavan iti, known as Bhagavan, Shabhyate, it so sounded. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. Purport: the absolute truth is both subject and object, and there is no qualitative difference there. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by the students of the Upanishads, as localized Paramatma by the Hiranyagarbhas or the yogis, and as Bhagavan by the devotees. In other words, Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, is the last word of the absolute truth. Paramatma is the partial representation of the personality of Godhead. And impersonal Brahman is the glowing effulgence of the personality of Godhead, as the sun rays are to the sun god. Less intelligent students of either of the above schools sometimes argue in favor of their own respective realization. But those who are perfect seers of the absolute truth know well that the above three features of the one absolute truth are different perspective views seen from different angles of vision. As it is explained in the first shloka of the first chapter of the Bhagavatam, the Supreme Truth is self-sufficient, cognizant, and free from the illusion of relativity. In the relative world, the knower is different from the known. But in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. In the relative world, the knower is the living spirit or superior energy, whereas the known is inert matter or inferior energy. Therefore, there is a duality of inferior and superior energies. Whereas in the absolute realm, both the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. There are three kinds of energies of the supreme energetic. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. The absolute realm and the living entities are of the same superior energy, but the material world is inferior energy. The living being in contact with inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to the inferior energy. Therefore, there is a sense of relativity in the material world. In the absolute, there is no such sense of difference between the knower and the known, and therefore, everything there is absolute. Mama jnanatimidandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvajnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. This is one of the most important verses in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and often quoted, and every devotee should very carefully understand the concept that is presented in this verse. So Srila Prabhupada refers to this verse in the first paragraph of his introduction to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So I'll just read that paragraph. The conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There is no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as the controller, because a controller cannot be impersonal. So, now when people think of God, different religions give different ideas, different different concepts. So some say that God is all energy, like Islam, for instance. They don't accept a form of God. They say that God is formless, and to consider that God has a form is considered haram, that which is prohibited, and basically very, very abominable thought according to their religion. And then many people in India are also many of the philosophies in the eastern part of the world also have some idea that God is energy, He is all light, and in some Abrahamic religions, such as Christianity, God has a form, but as Srila Prabhupada is explaining, He is the controller. God is the controller. This is this concept of God sitting on a throne, and people after their death, they go in front of God, and then there's the judgment, and so either they get sent to heaven, or if they're sinful, they didn't follow Jesus, they go to hell, or if they didn't follow that church, the right church, garden. So in this way, there are many different concepts of God. There are, in Greek philosophy, you have the trio. You have Zeus, then Poseidon, and then I forgot someone else. It's the underground God. So you have the Hades. So they are the three most powerful, and so they have different conceptions of what could be the controller. But the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam does not present the Supreme Personality of Godhead like this. It does present the absolute truth like this. The absolute truth is supposed to be complete. The understanding of the absolute truth is complete. What is incomplete in the other understandings? The incomplete understanding, for instance, if God is formless, if God does not have a form, then He lacks something. Srila Prabhupada gives this example. The Supreme Personality of God, if we have a form, Prabhupada used to give a very, very simple example. He says, you have a form. Your father has a form. Your grandfather has a form. So how come the source of all existence does not have a form? Similarly, if we have a form and God does not have a form, then He's lacking in something. Right? We have something that God does not have. We have something extra. So that means God is lacking in something. But God cannot be lacking. He has to be. So why do they say that God does not have a form? Because some transcendentalists, they think that a form means that which is material. Right? We all have everything that is a form. This book has a form. But what is it made of? It's made of inert matter. So similarly, our bodies are also made of material energy. And what is this body? This body is basically, there's in Sanskrit, I think this comes in Ayurveda. Sharira Vyadi Mandiram. The body is a temple of disease. This is what the body is. What is it? It's a temple of diseases. So what you get out of the body is just misery. I mean, you have to put nice things into the body. You smell nice things, you see nice things, you hear nice things. And what does it produce?
Nice.
Produces pus, urine, mucus, stool, saliva, very nasty things. So this body is a disgrace. To have this body is a disgrace. And materialists, those who are absorbed, like Prabhupada writes in the last paragraph of this purport, that the living being in contact with the inferior energy is illusioned, thinking he belongs to this inferior energy. So materialistic people, those who do not have a conception of the absolute truth, are very proud that there is this body. Oh, I'm American, I'm Russian, I'm white, and so and I'm very learned. I look very beautiful. I'm a feminist, or all these kind of conceptions. They're very proud of when one with some little transcendental knowledge can understand that this is basically just a disgrace, that this body is a source of misery. So transcendentalists, they think that a form means that which is made of material energy, and the supreme absolute truth or God cannot have this kind of a material form, therefore he must be formless. Therefore, he cannot have this kind of a form, because this form means when we have this body, what does it mean? The body was created at a particular time, so that means there was birth, and then it will be destroyed, there will be death, there's old age, there's disease. This cannot be present in God. These are miseries. These miseries cannot be present in the Supreme. So therefore, the Supreme must not have a form. So this is their this is one of the logical reasonings they come. So they say, oh, the Lord is Brahman. He's all-pervading energy. That's the source of everything. But again, then the problem is that God is lacking something, because only when you have a form can someone perform activities. That which is formless cannot perform activities. So then what happens is God does not do most of the things we do. Basically, God is just some vague energy that has no function, nothing to do, just there. So, therefore, that's an incomplete understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of the Absolute Truth. So, and then what happens is, okay, so if God has a form, then you have this other concept that Srila Prabhupada is explaining, that God is the controller. He sits on the throne, he's controlling people. But even that does not give a perfect understanding, because that gives a concept of God who's just there on the throne. He's creating people, he's putting them in this world, and then if they have one lifetime to choose if it's right or wrong, if they make the wrong decision, they're gone. They're gone to hell. Ever, their eternal damnation. So again, this concept of a God as just as a creator and as a destroyer. Okay, so in the Vedic sense, they say yes, God created, and then there is rebirth, and then so God is controlling this material universe. So we have to become free from sin, and we should worship God. So this is a little higher understanding than just one lifetime. They have some concept of reincarnation, of karma. But even then, the concept of God as a controller is incomplete. Why? Because even then, God does not do the activities we do. We have relationships. We exhibit affection and love to other people. We enjoy. We have the tendency to enjoy. What are the activities of God? He just sits there and just keeps commanding people. It's like it's like a king. It's like the president sitting on his seat. But that's all he does. That's not what the president is. The president has his personal life. The king has his personal life. Even the king is so the conception of God as just a controller is incomplete, because that also is not a perfect conception. It's not. Why is it not perfect? Because it's not everything about him. So therefore so I'll continue reading. Prabhupada gives the same example here. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, is impersonal to some extent. But ultimately, the chief executive is a person, and the impersonal feature of the government is subordinate to that personal feature. So without a doubt, whenever we refer to control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature. So this universe is controlled. We see control in the universe. We see organization. We see, we see order. We see things going on, moving in a particular system. So that indicates that there is a controller. Just like the reason, when was this? In India, when the partition happened between India and Pakistan, there was complete chaos. There was genocide on both between the Hindus and the Muslims, but the reason was at that time the government had become very weak, so there was no police force. What's keeping people from stealing? What's keeping law and order in the society is that there's a government, there's a control. If the police weren't there, the police force just suddenly suspended tomorrow, you cannot expect order in this country, or in any country for that fact. If the traffic police is not there to check, speed limits or, fine people for transgressing traffic laws, people would just, you can go to India, you can have a great experience. In some places, there is no traffic police. Everyone, drives their vehicle as if they built the road. So it's like that. So you can see that where there is organization, there is control, and where there is control, there has to be a person in control. And how can say some impersonal energy? We don't have experience of that. Just some vague impersonal energy controlling things? No, there's some personality to it. The very sense of control indicates action, and action is performed by a personality, not by some vague energy. But then again, what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here is he's giving the example of the chief executive and then the government. So the chief executive is a person, but his control, which is the energy that goes out and controls, is impersonal. So it's like it's impersonal because it's like this. Say now I push this glass of water, so it falls down. So I am pushing, so I am the person. But the energy of me pushing is not a person. The energy is not a person. The energy is impersonal. So similarly, we have in the Supreme Absolute Truth, Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is a person. But his energy that controls this world, that energetic aspect, that is impersonal. Because it is controlling everything. So the government, the president is controlling everything. But you don't see him everywhere. But it is his energy, ultimately he is controlling. So then Prabhupada continues, because there are different controllers for different managerial positions, there may be many small gods. So many people mistakenly consider the Vedas as propounding multiple gods. Oh, you people worship many gods. There's so many forms. There's many gods. No, there's one God. So that's why it's stated here in the verse. It says Advayam, non-dual. That's why the word Advayam is used in this verse. It means non-dual. Means that there's only one. It's one. There's one God, but he is exhibited in three manners. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has three features. The first feature is that he is a person. He's ultimately Bhagavan. He's a person, and he has activities. He has his pastimes. He has his abode. He has a name. God has a name. So, in this way, he has a name. He has form. He has pastimes. he has his holy dham, he has his holy abode. So in this way there are several characteristics of Bhagavan which you don't find in the impersonal aspect. And Bhagavan also consists of 6 opulences. That he is full of 6 opulences. 6 opulence means this is stated by Parasara Muni. So there are 6 opulences. 6 opulences are, he's full of strength, he's full of knowledge, he's full of beauty, he's full of he's full of renunciation. What did I say? So
Strength, knowledge,
and then he's full of fame. His fame is and then what's the last one? No, opulence is already mentioned. Wealth. So these 6 opulences are personal characteristics. And why are these 6 mentioned? Because we desire all these 6. If anyone in this material world possesses even one of these characteristics to a large extent, he is considered as a leader and a very important person in society. If one is very beautiful, automatically they become very renowned. Right? If one is very intelligent, then also they are recognized. If one is very renounced, then also they are recognized. Oh, he's so renounced. This person, Bill Gates established a foundation, is one of the greatest philanthropists. Immediately they are recognized. Whether that is true or not is a different thing. But the fact is that if you give a lot of charity, then also you are recognized. I want to be beautiful. I want to have a lot of strength. I want to have a lot of fame. So then we are recognized. So, but Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his feature as Bhagavan, he possesses all of this in full. No one can possess all of this in full, but Krishna can possess. So therefore, that feature of Bhagavan is a complete understanding. And what is just below that is the conception of the Paramatma. The Paramatma feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is where he is present everywhere in the material universe. He is present inside every atom. So some people have this understanding. God is everywhere. I feel God and, he's watching over me. This concept that God is watching over you. This is the Paramatma feature. That in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the Paramatma has 2 functions. Upadrashta, Anumanta. Upadrashta means he observes. He just observes, he sees. And then in the Kena Upanishad or Katha Upanishad, it is stated that the Paramatma and the Jivatma, they are both situated in the heart of the living entity. That our soul is situated right next to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Paramatma, as a localized Paramatma in our heart. So we say, God is in my heart. God is in our heart. Yes, that is true. And how is that? How do we understand that? That God is observing our actions. Krishna is observing our actions in the form of Paramatma. So it's explained that it's like a bird. It's like 2 birds on a tree. So one bird is explained as the Paramatma, the other bird is explained as the Jiva, or the living entity. And the Paramatma is explained as sorry, you wanted to say something? Okay, thank you. So there's the Paramatma is observing the activities of the Jiva, observing the activities of the living entity. And the living entity, what is the living entity doing? He's tasting the different fruits on the tree. So sometimes the fruit is sweet and he enjoys. Sometimes the fruit is bitter and he suffers. And then the Paramatma also sanctions. He sanctions the activities. So Anumanta, he gives sanction. If the Paramatma, on what basis does the Paramatma sanction? He sanctions on the basis of our karma, of our activities. It's not a random. Some people, okay, if you don't come into contact with Jesus, then you're going to hell. But then what about so many people who were born in parts of the world where they never heard of Jesus in their life? So what kind of a God is that he makes people born in that in these kinds of in these parts of the world where they never get knowledge of Jesus, and then they're sent to hell anyway. So God's activities are not whimsical. So the Paramatma's activities, his sanctions are not whimsical. And then so the Paramatma has these two features, and below that is the understanding of Brahman as this effulgence, as the energy of the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord, there is energy, his energy is spread everywhere, we can feel his energy, but the energy itself is not the complete understanding of the Supreme Personality of God, is not the complete understanding of the Absolute Truth. What is that energy? How do we understand that? It is the effulgence that is emanating from Krishna's body. So why are these three perspectives? The example that is given is that it is like observing a mountain. So when one observes a mountain from a distance, one sees that there is fog, they see some clouds, they see some vague shape of a mountain. So this is explained to be like the Brahman understanding. Seeing the Supreme Lord, the very far distance, you just see his effulgence. You don't see his personality, you don't see his form, you don't see his activities, you just see the effulgence, you just see light. So that's why sometimes when people meditate, they say light. It's true, but it's not a complete understanding. And then, when one proceeds closer to the mountain, then one sees a little more detail. One sees that there's a form of the mountain, and then there's a mountain range. So this is like the Paramatma understanding. One has proceeded further in understanding the Absolute Truth. Then when one comes closest to the mountain, then one sees, there are houses, there are trees, there are living entities, there are waterfalls, things like that. So then one's understanding of the Absolute Truth is more perfect. So they're looking at the same substance, but their understanding depends on how close they have got to understanding the Absolute Truth. And the Absolute Bhagavan cannot be understood by any logical means or any personal endeavor. It has to come by the mercy of the spiritual master. It has to come by the mercy of hearing from a bona fide acharya who comes in the parampara and receives knowledge that has been directly handed down by Krishna in books like Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So I'll stop here and we'll take questions or comments. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
You were reading in the introduction how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forcefully, converted the Mayavadi sannyasis, through his preaching, and I thought it very apt because of the Dhamma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, Prabhupada Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desitayana, that you and me, when we went to the Udupi temple in Jersey, that time we saw that those people over there, they lost it. They didn't mind Advaitavadis coming, and they didn't mind not preaching against them.
Right.
But so now we can see that, I had sort of a realization that one of the reasons that the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya, because Mahaprabhu could see that in the future, these branches slowly they're just watered down, losing their preaching spirit. So it stuck out to me then, so I thought I'd say it now.
Yeah, it's true. The preaching spirit is more or less gone. In fact, the Madhvas, it's surprising because the Madhvas, they're one of their main, one of the foundations of that parampara is to defeat Mayavad. They don't do it anymore. So that's what happens when we don't follow the words of the Acharya completely. Just like, for instance, we've seen how in our movement, if Srila Prabhupada has given us, says that book distribution is important. So Sankirtan, this is very important. And if we give up that activity, Prabhupada says that, in fact, there's actually a quote, Ramray Prabhu was telling me that yesterday. He says, all my followers should take up this important task of distributing my books. So, if we give that up, then, because we're cut off from the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, then, things start to change. Then it just becomes a semblance of what was given by Srila Prabhupada, a semblance of what was left by the Acharya. And so history teaches us a lot of examples. So we have to learn. Yes, okay, yeah.
Online question by Bhakta Ankit.
Thank you for the wonderful
He says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have two questions. In this verse, the definition of non-dual substance is confusing. The non-dual substance is explained as the non-existence of difference between the knower and the known, and the example is given as, in the absolute truth, both the knower and the known are one and the same thing. And furthermore, Prabhupada explains that in the absolute realm, the living entities are of the same superior energy. My question is, since the living entities are also of spiritual nature, so when the living entities try to know their own nature, in this case, the knower and the known is the same, namely spiritual natured energy, although in minute quantity, will this still be called non-dual substance? If yes, then why? And if not, then why is that contradicting the definition?
I'm not able to very clearly understand. Let me say what I at least understand. So the duality that is explained here is that I was explaining, for instance, God cannot have a form because a form has to be material. So therefore, there's a difference over there. It's stated in the Bhagavatam, Bhayam Jitya Abhiniveshitasya Ishat Apetasya Viparyayo Smriti, that when one has forgotten Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one comes into this material world of duality where one experiences happiness, pleasure, pain. So similarly, here in the verse, one sees a difference, because the living entity, they're spirit souls, but instead they are considering them considering themselves to be inert matter. So there are two things over here. Whereas when we are trying to understand our own spiritual nature, it is not contradictory, because our own spiritual nature is to understand that we are servants of Krishna, and then you have to understand who Krishna is. So then when we understand that we are part and parcel means what? We are part and parcel, but actually we are not different from Krishna. We're not completely different from Krishna. We are part and parcels. That's what's explained over here, that the knower and the known are of the same superior energy. So the knower and the known, Krishna and the jivas are the same superior. There are three kinds of energies of the Supreme Energetic. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic, but there is a difference of quality of energies. So in our case, we are one of the energies, and material nature is another energy. So there is a duality here. But as far as Krishna is concerned, the energies are possessed by him. So it's like the sun and sunlight. So sunlight and sun, the sun and sunlight, in one sense they are not different, because there is no sun without sunlight and there is no sunlight without the sun. But ultimately, the sun is the source of sunlight. So in this sense, the energies are the same, but there is a difference between the quality. So in our case, we are one type of energy, and the material nature is another type of energy. Whereas from Krishna's perspective, he and the energies are not different. They are his energies. So why is there a difference between us and the material energy? Because we're in this material world. When we become part and parcel of Krishna, when we become servant of Krishna, then we are engaged in Krishna's pastimes, where there is no difference. There is no material nature. There's none of this duality that is present. What is that duality? Again, Prabhupada explains later. Duality ultimately means that the duality is completely vanquished when our desires are merged with Krishna's desires. Our desires and Krishna's desires become one. So, the non-dual substance that is explained over here refers to Krishna and his energies as being non-different, that Krishna is not different. Like sometimes the concept of God and the devil are different. Krishna and Maya. No, Maya is Krishna's energy. Maya is Krishna's servant. So there's no duality here. It is one conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So
was that both questions?
Yeah.
There's one more question?
No, that was both. Yeah, go on.
I was thinking, like, is Krishna, like, when he was in, his pastimes, did he have a spiritual form or a material form? Like, he was spiritual but had a material.
That's an important question. So, very important to understand. Krishna does not have a material form. Krishna has only a spiritual form.
Okay.
That's the understanding of this verse, is that Krishna does not have to take a material form when he comes down to this material world. Just the Mayavadis, that's what they say. They say when God, so Mayavadis say that when God has to have a form, he has to have a material form. So he comes down to this world, he comes in the material body.
He does come in the material
They say that.
Oh, yes.
They say that Krishna has a material body, but that's not true. That's very offensive.
Okay.
Because then they say that there's difference. That's why they say, these Mayavadis, when you read their Bhagavad Gita, they say the supreme truth is speaking through Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And then when they say, with Prabhupada, you can hear Prabhupada's classes on this. Prabhupada explains, if you hear the 1966 lectures of Bhagavad Gita, the first lectures that Prabhupada speaks on the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada talks about this. How in Radha Krishna's commentary on the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, on the Bhagavad Gita, in the verse, it says, Sarvadharman Paritijam Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So, in that verse, Dr. Radha Krishna writes that it is not to the person Krishna that one has to surrender, but to the non-dual, eternal, unborn, speaking through Krishna. Speaking from within Krishna, something like this. They differentiate that even when Krishna has a form, they say that the soul of Krishna is God. That God has appeared like this. But this is exactly what, these are some of the aspects that are being tackled in this verse. There is no duality there. There is no Krishna's body and Krishna's heart, soul.
Yeah.
For us, yes. Because we are spirit souls. We belong to a superior energy and we are stuck in this inferior energy body. So, but as far as Krishna is concerned, there is no difference. That he doesn't have a soul. He's completely spiritual.
Okay. So
Krishna has a fully spiritual form. And we also, when we go back to the spiritual world, we manifest our eternal forms.
Okay, so a follow-up question.
Yeah.
I was reading Easy Journey to Other Planets, and I was talking about matter and antimatter, right? And antimatter is eternal and undestroyable, right? So if Krishna has this antimatter, this spiritual form, how is he perceivable? Like in his pastimes and Vrindavan, how could the gopis interact and associate with him if he has a spiritual form?
Because they also have spiritual forms. That's what through devotional service, now this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He's right here. He's there.
Yes.
This is not some picture. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sakshat Hari, who is present there. But we are not able to relate to him because we are still having material vision. We are materialized. Therefore, in the Brahma Samhita, there is a Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. That and the example of iron placed in fires is mentioned. That through the process of devotional service, we spiritualize our existence. And through this when we spiritualize our existence, when we become Krishna conscious, then we can perceive Krishna. Because we erode our material form, our material conception, including the false ego, and our true identity as a spiritual servant of Krishna is revealed, and in that position we can see Krishna. Because we are spirit matters, we are spirit souls, we can see Krishna, we can relate to Krishna. This cannot relate. This piece of wood cannot relate. But we can relate with Krishna because we are spirit souls. The gopis, all the living entities who are present in Krishna's pastimes are eternal associates. They are not conditioned living entities like us. Including acharyas like Srila Prabhupada. It seems like he has a material form. If he has a material form, why are we worshipping this form? So, the forms, where is Prabhupada's body right now? It's in the Samadhi in Vrindavan. Then we all go to that Samadhi, we go to Vrindavan, we circumambulate it. Why? It's matter. It's matter like anything else. No, it's not. So it's spiritual. So, yes, as you read Prabhupada's books, you can understand this better. This is very important to understand. The very foundation of Krishna consciousness is to understand these very important principles. Yes, I'm going to finish in 2 minutes.
Yeah, for Prabhu's point, Krishna, we need to understand only through devotion. You'll understand Krishna said the Bhagavad Gita, Naham Prakash Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavata Murayam Nabijanati Lokamanga Jmavya. For those who are foolish and undiluted, basically for non-devotees, Krishna covers himself with the veil of Maya, Yogamaya, and that people cannot really understand him like that. So through devotional service you understand Krishna. The Mayavadi argument is that Krishna is basically the personification of the material mode of goodness. So mode of goodness personifies and comes as Krishna, but that's not what Shastra says. In the Shastra says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha, Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha. His whole, his entire being is Sachitananda. So there's no distinction between Krishna's soul and Krishna's body. Everything is Krishna.
Eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. So these three, that's the final concluding point, is that these three aspects, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, exhibit those three aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That Brahman is the eternal aspect. People understand God is eternal. God is ever existing. His energy is all pervading. He's always there. So that's the eternal aspect. Paramatma is the understanding that God is full of knowledge. He's present everywhere. He knows everything. He knows all the activities. He knows everything that's going on. So it's the Paramatma feature. The Bhagavan feature is Ananda. He also experiences bliss. He also enjoys. He has activities. He has name. He has form. He has pastimes. That is the Ananda feature. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Visnu-citta Prabhu ki jai.
Acha, Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyeva cha Patitana